Super excited about this. Good morning, everybody in YouTube world and Facebook. I've got Tina here, and today we have a very special guest. It is the last day of March, and today joining us again is Michelle from GS1, who we are all eager to talk to and hear about the updates. If you work in the Amazon world, you know all the issues going on with barcodes right now and GS1 issues. Maybe you are looking to get a brand or, figure out how to purchase barcodes legitly, and this is something you're going to want to pay attention to. Also, go ahead and ask any of your questions if you have specific questions about anything to deal with barcodes. This is the time and place to ask them. If you ask on the replay, I will try to get those questions over to Michelle and John and get responses and get you answered. So don't feel bad if you're watching the replay. You can still ask your questions. So good morning, Michelle. It is so lovely to see you and have you on our show again. Why don't you go ahead and just reintroduce yourself for those that are maybe new to watching you and your background, what you're all about.
Sure, thank you. So thank you for having me this morning. I'm Michelle. I work with GS1 US. We are a global standards organization, most famously known for the barcode. 50 years ago, we introduced the barcode into retail to help that point of sale beep so that cashiers can have a better price lookup experience. We've expanded much, through a lot of other standards over the years, but primarily most known for that product identifier. I work with GS1. I help educate the community on, barcodes, on UPCs, G10s, what are the difference between all those, and then also help with answering a lot of Amazon specific questions based on some of the listing requirements, usually around barcodes, but it also goes into G10 or UPC hijacking, also a lot of questions around brand name. So help answer some of those questions today.
Excellent. Good morning, Nate. How are you? Welcome. So I wanted to first go over and just highlight your website so people know exactly what it is and what it looks like. There's just a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of buy our barcodes here. They're legit. And I just, I hesitate recommending or sharing anything that is not this. This I know 100% is legit. Anything else you are taking a gamble with, because I don't know, and they may tell you they're legit, just like the guy selling Ray-Bans on the corner is going to tell you that they're legit Ray-Bans. We all know they're not, so you've got to watch out. Scammers are going to scam. So this is the main webpage, and from here you can go and you can create your account. You can see their pricing here if you're looking to get barcodes. They have videos, they have all sorts of stuff. But I have to say, the thing that I use most is this. And I get to it by typing into Google GS1 lookup and go right to the site. This is really good because you can type in your barcode number. In fact, I can do it on this one. I have a lotion here that I believe comes up. I can't remember now. But you type in the barcode, and you could do this with your barcode, just see what your name is under. You hit search, you search I'm Not a Robot, and you can see who put this out. So this is by Redex Industries. If you look in the fine print on this, it says Redex Industries. You can see who is the owner of the barcode. So if you are going to go list an item, this is the database that Amazon links in with and is going to check. So if you try to take that barcode and list it with something else, it's not going to work. And bookmark this page so that you can come back to it if needed. Did you want to highlight anything else on your webpage here?
Sure. You went through two different things here, so that's great. On this page here, this is the page where if you haven't already assigned a barcode, a UPC, or a G10. They're all used interchangeably, all slightly different meanings, but if you haven't assigned an identifier to your product, this is a great starting point. We guide you through two different options. You could either buy single or license a single G10 or UPC. And that is great for those sellers that have a handful of products, one or two, up to 10. You could get a G10 assigned to your product. It's $30 one time, no annual renewal fee. You'll get your identifier, your G10 right away. So it's real-time fulfillment. Once you fill out all of the forms, you'll immediately get them. We get a lot of questions too on the prefix or the bundles. So if you have more than a handful of products, or what we say is as you're looking at your product line and if you're going to expand in the next, I say look out to the horizon 1 to 2 years. The prefix or that bundle of barcodes is actually probably a little bit more cost effective and more efficient for users, for members to come in and license. As you can see, we have different options. They're in increments of 10. So you get either 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. That's where you don't need to know all of your products at that time, but it's a great way for you to start. If you have, say, 25 products, go with maybe that 100 capacity prefix. It allows you to also have room for growth. And there is an initial fee. There is an annual renewal fee. Some companies don't like that, but it allows your prefix to stay active in our database. And but we also provide tools to help you enumerate your UPCs, your G10s from that prefix. So just some tools here to help you think about how many products you want that you need to identify. We do have a barcode estimator as well. So when we also have you think through how many you might need, think about product variations. You might have small, medium, large. You might have different colors. Some people think, oh, I just have a water bottle. But you may have 2 different sizes. You may have different colors. Each variation, you do want to have a different G10 assigned to it. So just some things to consider when actually licensing your prefix or your single identifiers.
I have run into people who have said, oh, I bought my UPC code 5 years ago and it's not working anymore. Well, maybe it's not got an annual renew, or they buy it on eBay and that is not a legit place to purchase barcodes as it was once back in the day.
I think so that's tying that into that search that you did. That is a very common thing that we run into. We'll hear companies call us and say, well, I did buy a barcode, but it's not showing up in your database. Well, if they didn't come to GS1 initially, that source is, like to your point, a little bit questionable. So GS1 is really the only organization. There are other GS1 member organizations that do license G10s or prefixes as well. So if you go to a GS1 member organization, you're getting a legitimate identifier for your product. If it's not GS1, it's a business decision, but it's a risk you take because it would not be authenticated in our database. It may require you to renumber your product and relabel your product and repackage your product, and that becomes very costly.
Yep.
Yeah, I will say that in my early years of listing on Amazon, like a lot of us from back in those early years, we used to buy a big list off of eBay of UPCs, and I would use them on anything I wanted. Gloria Vanderbilt, any name brand out there, and it worked just fine. But, that is the word of caution I throw to everybody now, is that now you cannot do that. You cannot do that. And Amazon does check against GS1 database, and they will end up shutting your listing down because that barcode is not assigned to that brand. So that is why it's really important everybody out there know the rules, and that Amazon does not allow us to get away with this anymore.
No, and a lot of people, they're getting upset because there's listings being taken down because they don't have proper barcodes to them. One of the other black hat tactics used back in the day is you would go to the store and you'd find whatever that had a barcode that was not in the Amazon catalog, and you would just write down that barcode and use it to list your product. So now catch up a few years later, it's not, they're going, where did you get this from? And it maybe got reassigned, or barcodes that don't get renewed do get reassigned out there if you don't use them. So, there's all sorts of reasons why the barcode isn't working, but it comes from those bad habits from back in the day.
Yeah, and the thing is, back when I was doing it, I thought I was just doing the right thing, as a lot of people did. There were
Mhm.
people out there that knew it was wrong and were just doing it. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I thought I was supposed to get a barcode because Amazon didn't let you create a listing without one, and some items didn't have them, or they would come case packed, and they might be case pack of 4 items, let's say toothbrushes. Yellow,
Mhm.
blue, orange, and green, and each toothbrush color had the same UPC code across the board as a case pack. And so you couldn't create the other 3 listing variations of the other colors because you've now used the UPC of the first color. And so, how did you get around that? So,
Mhm.
this is one of the reasons why we did it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing is you said way back when, or
Hmm.
Amazon is continually looking at their processes and the way that they check sellers, and just people have to realize that they may get frustrated that there's all these checks in place, but it's really to help protect the brands. And so just always think, there's all these steps you have to take to list, and there might be these roadblocks because, okay, now I have to use a legitimate GS1 barcode and I can't use these old ones. It's really to protect the brand. We want to make sure, and Amazon wants to make sure there's not counterfeit products out there. There are not, bad actors selling products that they shouldn't be. So it's, really wanting to make sure you have to think of the reason why these
Yeah.
checks are in place. So we always try to remind people that that's really what the role is for some of these checks. You do bring up a good point too, is years ago, they did have these items that were allowed to be listed, and you got on. But now
Hmm.
Amazon and Amazon's checking new listings. But what they are doing is they're starting to go back and do some checks on items that have been on the catalog for a while. So you
Yeah. Oh,
are
yeah.
starting
They've
to,
been cleaning house for a good year now.
yeah,
Hmm.
they're going to continue. So
Hmm.
I think there's no like rhyme or reason how they're doing that cleanup, but they are going through and doing back cleanup on items that have been listed for a while to make sure that they do have that proper GS1 assigned. And so those that have listings out there, like think they might be okay, just be aware that you might have your listing, suppressed and be asked to update it. One of the things though we do find though, you do have some companies that come to us and say, well, I did list a long time ago with those, UPCs from eBay. How can I update it now? It's not as easy if you want to be proactive, though. So I know it sounds weird to say, but what we're finding is for those companies that want to be proactive and update now, Amazon doesn't have a very good process for doing it if it hasn't been like blocked or restricted from Amazon. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely. Amazon doesn't make anything easy ever. So, yes, those of us who sell on Amazon, that doesn't surprise any of us.
yeah. So we get a lot of companies come to us and say, we want to be proactive and change it. It can be done. It's just, it might run into roadblocks, and you might not have all of your, like your customer ratings, things like that, your sales history go over with you when you do that changeover. And so, there's those challenges too.
That's a bummer. John had me link this page, which is telling you a little bit about the company and some tips and everything. So why use the GS1 company, and how hard is it to make an account with you and get set up and going?
It's not hard at all. Any of us who've ever done an e-commerce transaction on Amazon or anywhere else, it's similar process. You select the GTIN or the prefix that you want, and then you basically fill out your company information, your company address, company contact. The next screen takes you to payment. You submit a payment online, and then you, like I said, hit submit, and pretty much within real time you will be presented your GTIN or your prefix. We also
And
do. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you need to have like an LLC or an EIN, or can you just be like Joe Schmo off the street and buy a UPC code?
Because there's a lot of small sellers, like, that are, might have been creating product in their garage, may not have set up an LLC. We do allow for that. It is recommended, of course, when you look at your business and setting it up, you do put yourself, set yourself up as a proper corporation or an LLC, but we don't do any checks against that when you sign up to get a license with us.
Okay.
I was going to say too, once you do get, especially if you get the prefix, that bundle, we do also provide a tool. It's called our GS1 Data Hub tool, because when you buy a prefix, you like say if it's 100, you then would enumerate that prefix into 100 UPCs or GTINs. There's a calculation in there. There's a check digit. We know it's a little complicated, so we actually have that tool that allows it to just enumerate those UPCs for you, so you don't have to do that. And it's also a great place to start, actually, for those companies that don't have a large ERP system, to start entering some product information and it gives you like a backbone for your product information file. So you could assign your brand name, your product description, weights, dimensions, things like that. So the Data Hub tool is a great way to just start building your product file, and also allows you to enumerate your prefix without any issues. So
I love it that GS1 sells bundles just like I do.
And can you go through real quick, just like, I don't want to say gloss over, but from a bird's eye view, kind of describe the difference between barcode, GS1, UPC, for those of us that struggle and kind of just throw them all together.
I know, and I've been using them too, because so many people use them all interchangeably, and I wanted to highlight them. So the barcode is actually those lines that you see on the product that encode the number, so it could be scanned at point of sale. So it's really, the barcode's meant to be something for a machine to read. It's the number underneath that is called the GTIN. It's a global trade item number. So it is, and you could have different lengths of GTINs. So most commonly used in the United States is the 12-digit UPC. It's called a UPC barcode. It is basically the 12 digits encoded into the barcode, and it's 12. That number is, that GTIN is 12 digits long. In other areas of the globe, usually it's the 13-digit. It's associated to the EAN barcode. And then also there is a 14-digit GTIN, and that is usually assigned to an upper level package. So like a case or a carton, sometimes a pallet, depending. So you have your each, and then you'll have your upper level of packaging. So that's usually assigned to a 14-digit GTIN. But the numbers itself are called GTINs. They are, again, different lengths. And then they get encoded into either a UPC barcode or an EAN barcode. So then sometimes that 12-digit gets referred to a lot as just a UPC, but it's really a UPC barcode. So,
and I have a question. So if I buy my barcode or my numbers, and I am a bundler, and I'm now bundling my items together, and I'm trying to assign a barcode to it, is that barcode required to be on any of the packaging?
Depends. So it depends on where you're selling it. So if you're selling it in an online marketplace like Amazon, it never crosses a point of sale. So you don't need that actual barcode, the lines, because that's really the intent for the barcode itself is for a machine to scan it for price lookup. There's so many more uses for barcodes, and we could even talk into like where we're going with 2D barcodes, QR codes, because it could carry so much more information. But traditionally, those barcodes are used for point of sale to do price lookup. On an online marketplace where it never crosses that point of sale checkout, they are not required. So it's just really assigning that item number, that GTIN, to that bundle so that it could be uniquely identified as product A, product B is bundled together and sold as product C.
Okay. And then I have kind of a follow-up question. I've had some people reach out that are in the non-American realm, and so Canada, Mexico, UK, Australia, New Zealand, etc. When they want to list on Amazon and they need to get a product identifier, are they getting one that's based out of the American one, or are you set up in the other countries?
So good question. So as I mentioned, GS1 is a global standards organization, and we have offices around the world. So we have, I represent GS1 US. There is a GS1 Canada, there is a GS1 Mexico, a GS1 UK. There's about, I think, 116 what we call GS1 member organizations. They're all operated actually independently. So we're all our own business. We all have our own business model. Where you actually get your license, your identifiers from, it really doesn't matter on a global scale because they are all globally unique and globally accepted in the marketplace. It's really where you want your in-country support. So if you are in Germany and you speak German and you want to get your license, your identifiers with that German support, you would most likely go to the GS1 Germany office just because you'll have in local time zone and in local language support. So most people in the US will come to GS1 US because we're the local office. But we do have companies that come to us that are not based in the US, and that's okay.
But okay, so that's really good to know. Now let's say that you have your item and you sign up in Germany because German is your main language and you're comfortable with that. When you start going to international sales, you can use that identifier to then list your product over on the other countries.
Yep.
Is my understanding.
Perfect. Yeah. So every any GS1 issued identifier is globally unique and can be recognized around the globe. So Perfect. It's we have a system in place. So like I said, each member organization allocates licenses, and within certain ranges, we have that listed on the GS1 Global Office's site. But basically, we have a system in place. So every license that we issue through the GS1 Federation is globally unique and can be accepted globally.
Very good.
I had a question one of my clients had, and this is a woman sourcing a product off of Alibaba, and she lives in the US, but she plans on selling it in Amazon, Mexico. And she was wondering if she purchased her barcode, do you purchase it under the name of your actual product brand name, or do you purchase it under your legal business name?
Another really good question, and we get this a lot. So when you come to GS1 to license your identifiers, use your company name. So you would want to use Michelle's Company LLC as the company, even though my brand might be, Jazzy Shoes. So because as a company, you could have multiple brands. I always use the example of Coca-Cola Company. Everybody knows it. Coca-Cola has many different brands. So why would they want to come to license their identifiers under Sprite? They want to be known as the company and organization name is Coca-Cola Inc. So when you license your identifiers, use your company name. The brand name is assigned to the product, and that could change. So you might have multiple products that have different brand names. So we do hear a lot, especially some companies, when they go to list on Amazon, one of the things that Amazon does check for is brand name, and they do a brand name authentication, and they feel like it doesn't match the GS1 database. It is an incorrect representation of the error that Amazon says. It says the brand name doesn't match the GS1 database. We don't actually provide brand name to Amazon. That is something they collect. So we're working with them to change the wording on the error, because it's misleading, and people come back to GS1 and they'll ask us to change their license information, that company, to the brand name. And that's not recommended, nor do we do that, because it doesn't make sense. So it's a separate process within Amazon where they'll ask you to do a brand name authorization, which is basically associating your brand to your company. So they'll ask you to take a picture of your product with your brand name on it, maybe also with your legal entity name on it, or with your barcode on it associating, so it does prove that you are the brand owner.
And it's probably advisable to use the same business name, your name, address, that is the business name and address associated with your Amazon account.
Absolutely. That is definitely recommended, because that's how they do some of the validation, is the business name, like in the background, the business name to the business name that we provide in our database file.
So it is almost 8:30, and I have a 9 o'clock appointment today. So this is kind of the call out here. If you have any questions for Michelle, anything to deal with GS1 barcodes, labeling, Amazon, go ahead and get them in now so that we have time to ask her and get your questions asked.
I could cover while we're waiting. I could cover 2 or 3 common issues that we hear.
Yeah.
So members will come to us and say, I'm having this problem, help me.
That would be lovely. And if you have any insight on what Amazon is doing in the future, what they're going through, that is my question. That's where I want.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the first, so I'll go through a couple of the common issues. One of the first ones, and I highlighted it when I talked about what's the difference between a G10 14, a 13, and a 12. One of the first fields that you enter when you go to list a product is, what is your product identifier, and which one do you pick? Is it a G10? Is it an EAN? Is it a UPC? Yes. So again, using terminology, because we say we issue a G10, but it's a UPC barcode. So essentially, and we're working with Amazon, and I think hopefully in the next month or two that will be more clear for members to help change that wording there and that drop down. But if it says, if you have your 12-digit item number, so what we issue at GS1 US is usually a 12-digit identifier. That would be associated to the UPC. So if you have a 12-digit product identifier, select the UPC box. If you did get your item from, say, GS1 UK, it's usually 13-digit EAN, select EAN. If you've assigned it that upper level packaging and it's a carton and it's a 14-digit, that's when you select G10. So that will hopefully, yeah. So that is a common question we get, is which one do I set? Because you said you've issued us a G10, but I go to put it in and I enter G10, but it's really 12-digit, it's not 14-digit. So just some tips there.
Ali has a question. Let's say the product gets discontinued and we can't sell it anymore. Can we use the GS1 for another one?
Can you use the GS1?
So what she means is, if I'm selling this little composition notebook under a UPC that I've purchased from GS1, but now I can't get it anymore, and now I want to use that UPC on this cup, can I reuse it?
Absolutely not. So good question. We get that a lot because some of these products can live on the marketplace for a long time. Even if it's been discontinued, it could still show up on the marketplace. So no reuse. We did actually change the standard I think it was in 2017. There was the ability to reuse G10s after products got discontinued. But because of the birth of the marketplace and how products could live a lot longer than their intended, market shelf life, I guess, we had to extend the standard or change the standard, so there was no G10 reuse.
The other thing I want to just add in there is, and I've come across this, so I just want to share it. Let's say you have that UPC code, you bought it for a pack of notepads and you messed up on the listing, but you've already assigned that G10 to it, and you need to get it unassigned. You have to go through and get it tombstoned. So if you're ever talking to seller support, you need to make sure you tell them that you're trying to tombstone that so that you can properly use it if you can't fix it by other routes. It's kind of I've had to do that before. It's not fun.
I always
it's
forget
not
that
easy.
It's called tombstone, and I've referred to it as graveyarding it when I meant tombstone.
I just learned something new today too, so thank you.
Yeah, once the UPC code is tombstoned in the catalog, then it can be used again, but it has to be officially dead. It's got to be dead and buried.
From a standard perspective, I'm just going to say that's a decision that you can make as your own business, but as a standard perspective, the G10 should not be reused. So.
Well, this is
it's the same product. Yeah,
right. It's like when you
mess up your listing.
They messed up the spelling of the brand name. So instead of like Coca-Cola, it was Coca-Cola's, and they were like, shoot, I need to take that off. And we had to get it deleted. Okay. And then, so it was just Amazon's 99% technical and coding and error.
Yeah.
So it's not common sense stuff. It's just the computer. It's the robot. So what's the future? What are we looking at here, Michelle?
So there's a couple of things that Amazon, just because of some of these issues, like I said with the brand name, one of the things that they do is a company may have a generic product, and one of the items is to select generic. But if you have a G10 associated to your product, they don't allow a G10 with a generic. And so if you had a generic product, they think that you wouldn't have a G10 assigned to it. So you can't list a G10 with a generic with a G10. They are going to start allowing that too. So I think that change is rolling out in the next month. I don't know exactly when, but in talking with them, we did say, generic products can have a G10 associated. So that will be something that they're going to start allowing sometime in the coming months.
Will it be optional or required?
You could have both options. You could have a G10 and generic, or you could have generic with no G10. So you'll have both.
That's very good to know.
That would be very nice. Yeah, I'm down for that, because I have seen some generic things. And then I know we talked last time about multi-packs and the problem with that. And since Tina and I, we teach a lot of things about bundles and multi-packs. For those that are listening, a multi-pack would be when you go and you get a 2-pack of ranch dressing. It's a multi-pack. And so really, each bottle has the same UPC code, but you can't use that again in the Amazon system if it's already tied to a single bottle. You can't use that barcode again and use it for a 2-pack or a 3-pack, versus a bundle would be like ranch dressing with Caesar dressing, and that's more of a bundle type thing. What is the status of multi-packs, and what are they working on?
So the standard is if you have the single, the G10 is associated to the single. If you have a multi-pack and you're doing the 2, that multi-pack has a different G10 associated. So, and I have seen where sellers may not have done that, and they assigned the same G10 to the single and to a case. And I ordered supposedly 2 cans of coffee, and I got 2 cases of coffee instead, which was awesome for me because I got a lot of coffee and only paid for 2 cans. But you can make a mistake. So don't assign the same identifier to a case or a multi-pack as you do as the single. So each sellable unit should have its own G10. So think about that. Each sellable unit should have its own G10. So if it's a single, and then if you have a multi-pack, or if you then have a case, each sellable unit has its own G10.
But as if I don't own ranch dressing or Coca-Cola, the parent company, Tina, can't go buy a UPC code to make a multi-pack of 2 ranch dressings, because if you check the GS1 database, it's not going to belong to the brand owner.
Yeah.
So bundles are a different story. That's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. So there's the multi-pack versus bundles. So if you take a bottle of shampoo, a bottle of conditioner, and a brush, and you try to bundle it all together, and you've got a L'Oreal product and a Conair brush, there are some, and I don't know, I know where we've done some work at GS1 for some standards definition on how you would assign identifiers for that. So there is some standards work that GS1 has done. Amazon has looked at that new standard. It was just ratified last summer. They are looking to incorporate that into their business process, but it's not there yet to follow the GS1 standard. So the GS1 standard is if you have a shampoo, a bottle, or shampoo, conditioner, and a brush, you assign a new G10 to that bundle. And then the brand should be the brands in that, not Michelle's bundling company or whatever. It should be L'Oreal, Conair. But that standard is not fully adopted and integrated into Amazon systems yet. They are looking at how to implement that.
Ellie, I'm not ignoring you there, but I do have one last question. With the multi-packs, the problem that we're having on as sellers is, let's say L'Oreal comes out with a new shampoo. Well, whoever gets to that new shampoo first and gets that barcode can make it whatever pack they want. They can say it's a single, a double, a triple, and maybe they feel at that time that the triple pack is the best way to sell that shampoo. Well, now anybody who wants to sell a 2-pack or a single pack is toast, because that barcode is now assigned to the 3-pack, and we can't do a 2-pack or a single pack because we're not L'Oreal. And it's
Right.
that's where the problem is. And L'Oreal's not going to come out and say, oh yeah, let me just go buy 2 more barcodes and or go after this seller that, assigned it to the 3-pack. That's where we want to see some change in Amazon,
I see.
because it's like, well, it's the same thing. You're just getting, can't we just have for a customer thing? I would love as a customer to go to one page and see my favorite shampoo and be like, oh, okay, I can choose 1 bottle, 2 bottle, 3 bottle, 4 bottle, and select, instead of having a different page and different setup for all of it.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I could bring it back and see if I could, make any influence on how to handle that situation. But I don't know right now if there is a good process in place. It sounds like it's not.
Because as soon as some new product comes out, which is whatever, the new Reese's Pieces for Easter or the new whatever, they'll take that barcode and whoever gets to it first has first crack at how they want it to be.
And for those of us who like to bundle things, because 1, this is how we make our living. And number 2, we try to put things together that really do make sense for the customer that they're going to want. And, these are the things that make it very hard.
Yep.
So Ellie asks, what are the advantages of an EIN versus GS1?
So EIN is the company identifier, correct?
Yeah. Your EIN is
your tax ID
number.
Yeah, it's from.
Yeah, they are 2 different things. So your EIN identifies you as a corporation. So for tax purposes, GS1 is really around product identification. So that is really where you come and get the kind of like the license plate number for your product. And so they are 2, like I look at them as 2 separate things.
Yeah, it's almost like 2 different companies.
Yeah. EIN is really to identify your company for tax purposes and entity creation.
Yep. Excellent.
I didn't know if there was if that was a confusion of EAN versus, so.
Maybe.
Maybe
that's what she meant.
EAN is European.
Yeah. So you have
what does it stand for? It's European
article number.
Article number. Yes.
Yeah. So it's again that 13-digit versus the 12-digit. And again, there is no real difference except where you get it, where you license your identifier, whether it's in the US or if it's outside the US. But again, globally unique. It's just, GS1 issues 12 digits. EANs are 13-digit, usually licensed elsewhere outside of the US.
What do they use? I mean, obviously we use, EAN in Europe and G10 here. What do they use in like India and China?
EANs around the rest of the globe.
So
EANs usually around the.
Are we just?
I don't know if there'd be enough numbers to go around the globe to make them globally unique. So I don't know the reason. I mean, well, I could tell you if you want a little history lesson. GS1 started years ago as actually 2 separate entities. We started in the US first as the UCC net about 50 years ago. And then the European nations came together and said, oh, they're doing a great idea with product identification. Let's start our own. That's when they invented the 13-digit system. And then we realized this is actually a global solution. And so we merged entities, and now we're one global family instead of being 2 separate. So over the years, they were 2 separate, but now they've joined as one big global family.
And to confuse people even more, there's the ISBN for books, and you do nothing with ISBNs, right?
No.
Okay. Totally different entity. Every once in a while, I'll get somebody that wants to get a number for their book, and they should be doing ISBNs and not UPCs, correct?
ISBN, some companies do get both.
Okay.
Yeah.
See that?
You'll see 2.
I've seen that
an
on
ISBN
books,
number and
barcodes,
either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Same with those that are sold on different markets. Like if you launch your book, you might have the UPC for America and the EIN. I see a lot.
And if you do your book through KDP through Amazon actually assigns you an ISBN, and it's just part of the service. You don't have to go out and purchase it.
One more thing, just to kind of talk about the future, and this isn't maybe about Amazon specifically, but one of the things that we are working on is, I mentioned, you've seen the linear barcode on your products for the last 50 years. We are starting to see that more and more data needs to be carried in those barcodes, because it's not just used for point of sale anymore. Mm-hmm. And even at point of sale, you might want to collect more than just price information. But those barcodes can also, now that we've seen, the pandemic, we saw that the use of QR codes just kind of explode everywhere. Everybody has a camera on their phone. You could quickly scan a QR code and you could get a lot of information. You can't scan a barcode, like the linear barcode, with your phone. And so we are starting to look at industry moving more towards that 2D barcode, and start having some more information being stored in that barcode. So not only can you do the scan at point of sale, but you could start engaging as a customer and get either warranty information, nutritional information, instructions on how to build that product if it's a kind of a kit that you need to assemble. Just so much more information, recall information. If there's a recall on your product, you could scan it and you could have that information. So you see that we're talking about that, but we've been working with industry to move to that 2D barcode. And I think it's really exciting for us, because even just as consumers, we can now start to engage with the products that we receive and have much more information about that product, because
so a 2D barcode is actually that QR code. That's what 2D barcode is.
Yeah.
I know Google now, you can right click even on a page when you're searching image search, but I also noticed that you can create that QR code just with a click of a button in Google. That is very interesting to be able to add, like you say, recall information or instructions on how to use a product. But then my question would be is, where is that entered into then?
You're looking, we have a ton of resources on that.
Yeah.
The brand can own it. So this is what's so exciting about the QR code. It depends on where you are. If you're pointing at that QR code, whether it's in a, like say, a retailer's app, they might have more information, their own information about that QR code. So they could have it pull up coupons or, sales events or whatnot. If the brand has that QR code, they could then enter their own information. Say, like if it's food, nutritionals, they could issue a recall through that. So it just depends on, it could be a different experience based on if you're scanning it from an app, type of a camera through an app, or even
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that, because if I'm selling something on Amazon and it has a QR code, and with it is my instructional booklet or something, some information attached to my bundle via this code, I think that's genius. I love that.
Yeah. Yep.
So it says 2027, is that?
Well, we're starting to, you'll actually see some products that already start to move to the QR code, but at GS1 US, we're working with the industry to make sure that they're set up for this. So it does take a lot. So you have to do the education, how to implement the, at least the GTIN into the QR code, how to scan it. So we need to work with all the scanner companies, to make sure that their optics can scan it. And then the transition. So there might be some, especially if you're thinking of some of the traditional brick and mortar that have been using the same systems for a very long time, just transitioning those systems. But we're all trained now to use a QR code. So we've also done some pilots just saying, okay, if you have this product and you're at the grocery store, what would you do? Everybody automatically knows, okay, just put the barcode in front of the camera or the
camera. Yeah. Restaurants do that out here. Through the shutdown, when everything was opening, they went away from menus at a lot of restaurants, and you have to scan the QR code to get the menu.
Is this and I found out my appointment is not until later, so I'm not at a rush to get off. So I'm happy about that. I looked at the wrong time. Now, is this the same as transparency code? So 2D barcode, QR code, and transparency code, are they all kind of the same thing?
So Amazon has their transparency program, which does leverage a QR code. Okay. One of the things, so that's a specific program. They do actually allow for GS1 identifiers to be embedded into their QR code to identify the product. So that they do support the GS1. It's called a digital link standard, and or like GS1 identifiers. So the transparency program, that's fairly new though. So they started off on their own program, and then they realized that we have a lot of companies that do use the GS1 standards. So they are looking to adopt some of the GS1 standards behind that QR code too.
So Nate says that Walmart has that new barcode. I know it's used when you go to check out and you use the scan and go. And I tell you, everybody at Walmart thinks I'm crazy when I do the scan and go. They still haven't like figured out that I'm like, you guys have this program. Like I'm using your software, and they they seem perplexed by that. They're like, what are you scanning? What are you doing? Don't you watch your own commercials? And then Nate, does the GS stand for Goldman Sachs?
No. GS doesn't stand for anything. Some people think, does that stand for like global standards? It doesn't. It's really just the name of our company is GS1. Yes.
And so it's global.
It doesn't really stand for anything, to be honest. But some people think, oh, maybe it's global standards, but it really.
That's what I always thought it was, global standard.
Yeah. Well, it is.
It doesn't stand for anything specific.
Yeah. Have you started working with Walmart? I guess we could ask that. I mean, Tina and I are mostly Amazon sellers, but I do have a Walmart account. And at Walmart, when you are listing, you have to have some sort of code. Is that right? Am I thinking right?
Walmart has been a long standing advocate and proponent for GS1 standards. So definitely in their brick and mortar, they have always required a GS1 identifier, a UPC barcode on their products at point of sale. As far as their marketplace, they were, when they launched the marketplace, they kind of allowed the wild, wild west like Amazon did at the beginning. But they are starting to understand the value of, now they're getting a lot of duplicates. Now they're getting some, the same kind of situations that Amazon had. And so I think they're starting to move towards some of the similar kind of processes as, you have to have a UPC or an EAN assigned to your product to list. So their databases are starting to tie with their retail channel as well.
Yes. And for Amazon's G10 exemption program, are they keeping that on going forward, or is their end goal to kind of get rid of that?
I think ideally their end goal is to get rid of it. But I think that's going to be challenging, to be honest. I think there are some product categories that just that do allow for G10 exemptions. And we've seen that just across the board. Handmaids or handmade products, collectibles, those always seem to be those product categories that just don't have G10s. But they had Amazon, I don't know if you remember, they had a long list of product categories that allow G10 exemptions, and they're making it shorter and shorter over the years. So I know tires was an example, a couple of, I think beginning of 2022, maybe it was, I can't remember, where they removed tires off of the G10 exemption list because they realized, tires do have UPCs assigned to them. And so we're seeing tires come onto the platform with UPC. So why are we giving G10 exemptions? So just an example of a category that they evaluated and realized we don't need to do G10 exemptions on these. So I think they'll continue to evaluate and see, it's their decision. I don't have any influence on it or GS1 or anybody, but it's just one of those things that we saw that, good, they took that G10 exemption off.
Yeah, that's it's interesting to see how they're morphing and what they're doing and what direction they're going. Yeah. And then as a seller, we're always looking at all the different platforms and what they're doing and how they're going. And I mean, drop shipping on Facebook Marketplace is a big thing right now, and that's kind of the new wild, wild west. The way I see it, there's a lot of shenanigans going on with that. But yeah, and then the biggest hits that I get are for people that want to get a barcode for their product over in that they're sourcing from Alibaba, and then they go through all this trouble to get their UPC printed on their product over there. And I'm like, why? there's no reason, unless if you're scanning it at the store, there's no reason to get that, to have it be printed on your box. unless if you're planning on launching your brand onto other marketplaces and stores where you would scan that code.
And that's a good point, because we do say, we do recognize that, especially because of Amazon, it never does generally cross that point of sale scan. But as you're looking at your product, and depending on if it's a product that you're creating yourself and you want to launch it, think about your omni-channel strategy. Think about where you want to grow and what markets you want to grow into. And if you do think you will, your product line will become picked up by a national retail chain, or a local store that does do point of sale, it's always good to start with actually printing that barcode on your product, because it allows you to transition quickly. So we have seen companies where they've had to go back and repackage, or were not set up and actually lost the opportunity to sell into a Target or a Walmart because they weren't ready, and they had to go back and repackage and that sort of thing. So, or it took extra time to get to market. So we always say, as you're looking at your products, put together your product launch strategy and growth strategy, and always think about where you want your product to be. And if you think it's going to also be on a shelf in a store, it's always good to at least put that barcode on your product.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So shelf ready.
Totally agree. And I've worked with both clients that the end game is to launch into like a Target shelf, and then some that are like, no, I have no desire to do that whatsoever. And I said, okay, great. Now your product's covered with a barcode that you need to cover up with your FSNKU sticker. So, two different routes there. You definitely, same with branding, if you have no desire to brand yourself and make that brand recognized in the world, then picking a store name isn't really that big of a deal. But if you want to be the next Nike or whatnot, then you got to put some thought into your name and the graphics and the design and the logo and maybe something professional. But if you just want to be Michelle selling on Amazon, you don't need a $300 art job for it.
Right. Yeah. So they're all just business decisions you need to make when you're launching your product or trying to sell.
Yep. All right. Well, is there anything that you can think of that we haven't talked about? John, if you can think of anything either, he's listening in the background. John is our other partner.
I think I talked about one more common issue is just because we talk about G10 hijacking all the time, and we didn't really touch on that. Yes. And it's always a common question or issue that I get as well. So sometimes sellers will go to list. They have come to GS1. They've got their licensed their G10, their UPCs with us. So they are now the legitimate owners, and they go to list and they get an error saying this G10 already exists on our platform. That could be from somebody who didn't know better and created just a G10 on their own, maybe got one from a non-GS1 source. We don't know, but it's out there on the platform, and the true licensee is now blocked from selling. That is what we refer to as a G10 hijacking scenario, whether it was intentional or not. That's kind of the terminology we use. In that case, we've worked with the selling partner support team to, if you run into that, let them know and use those words, G10 hijacking. Not like somebody's using it, but like somebody, and it'll get you to the right queue to help you clear the one that is not the true license holder, and they'll help you clear that listing, the non-authentic user,
compliant,
so that you could actually list. So there wasn't a specific queue for a while that handled it, but if you use those terms in your support ticket, it will now get to the right queue.
All right, so I think I'm kind of dumb on this here. I'm not quite following. So how would somebody hijack you? They go to your detail page and they find the GS1 barcode, and then they go and register it?
No. So this is if you go to list after you've come to GS1 and the G10 already exists on the platform. So it was there before, it didn't make it through the cleanup. It somehow got on the platform before all these checks were in place. And so now you're the legitimate license holder. So, you could go in and ask, because of that now, because we've seen that happen quite a bit. now that there's a process in place, the queue, they could go in and help clear up the bad actor or the non-compliant listing so that you could list with your own G10.
By saying it's a G10 hijacker.
Yeah. So use G10 hijacking as it'll end up based on those words, it'll end up in the right queue to help you. Supposedly, we've seen it help. So
I've had 2 cases that I opened opened again yesterday because they keep giving me the same responses, and I won one last night, and it was 2 products have gotten stuck in hazmat review for well over a week, and I'm like, there's something wrong, and I finally had to be very firm, and I'm like, there is something wrong, very very caps
in all caps.
Yeah. Stop doing that. The main hijacking that I have seen is where people start doing branded products, and they do a brand and they haven't done the official registration yet, and then they go to do a trademark and they find that somebody's hijacked their brand name.
Yeah, that's different. So
well, yeah, I'm just saying there's a lot of hijacking for everything. Yeah. And we've seen a lot of listings get hijacked as well, where they try to go in and if you type that means you're serious. I was very serious yesterday. But yeah, there's a lot of hijacking, and there's still a lot of drop shippers that think that drop shipping is going to be okay and trying to do that. And they keep trying to clean that up too. If you follow all the news, it's pretty ridiculous. So I hear you have a podcast.
Yeah. So the Next Level Supply Chain podcast, great. Just an arena. We talk about all things related to supply chain issues, or, not necessarily always just GS1 standards around just barcodes, but we talk about all different things. It's great. Go and there's some different topics there. So we talk about, new trends, emerging technologies, different opportunities for collaboration, other kind of initiatives that GS1 is working on. But you're also talking to people of industry. So it's not just GS1 talking, we're hearing from, industry members that are talking about some cool and interesting things. So check it out. It's the Next Level Supply Chain podcast, and you have it right there.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, that looks.
They're fun. Yeah. Reed and Liz do a great job kind of hosting and make it fun and interesting. So it's great.
I will subscribe to that, but I got to go into, I'm on Spotify now. So I'm trying to learn that. My kids were complaining about Pandora. So now I got to learn a new software. I'm like,
it's not that hard. I figured it out. So if I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out.
I just hate learning new things. And then this is the page you are going to want to bookmark as well. So I've linked them down in the comments there. So you know what? I'll try and go in and edit and put them in the links too for other things. And John says it is on Spotify. So good.
Oh yeah, the podcast is on Spotify. That's why I said I figured it out, because I found the podcast on Spotify. So
nice. All right. Well, yeah, I a lot of my Spotify stuff, it's all very dry. It's all financial reports and barcodes, and I don't lead an exciting life, but that's all right. I think most of us that live in the Amazon world, we're kind of nerdy like that.
Nerd's gonna nerd.
Amazon is not for the weak of heart. I mean, it's frustrating. I worked with somebody who changed their GS1 company name. They changed their company name, and then he's struggling to get Amazon to take on the changes to accept that his company name is now X, and so those barcodes will work. And you just get caught up in those types of things, which you'd think is easy. If you go in and you talk to a person, it makes sense. Oh, you changed your company name. Sure, we'll update this. But with Amazon, it's like you have to jump through so many hoops to try and get them to get things fixed. All right. So I think we've covered just about everything. Ellie says, thank you for all the information and clearing up the confusion around these barcodes. You are so welcome, Ellie.
Glad to help, Ellie.
It is always nice to have you on here. We definitely need to continue to have you on here as things develop and change and the world changes. And gosh, I'm just getting barcodes down. I don't know if I'm ready for 2D barcodes to start printing those out and whatnot. But I use them in other things. It's just,
Yep.
we're always changing, always adapting.
Always changing. Yep.
Pretty soon we'll just hold up our arm with our 2D barcode, right? And
No.
Yep.
we'll always do that. In the system, in the matrix.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well, do
thank
you
you
have
for
any
being
other?
here today.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Always glad to help answer questions. If you do get anything afterwards too, and need some help, be glad to help answer those questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you. And everybody out there, you guys have a wonderful day. I'm going to end the broadcast.